What's up, beautiful people, and welcome to the first episode of my mini series, My Boarding School Experience, a day in the life of a first year student. Now, this is going to be podcast style, so I'm not really going to be looking at the camera much, except for like right now. Camera is right here, but I'm going to just be reading it because it's very long and it's podcast style. So if you're watching this on YouTube, just know right away I'm not going to be looking at the camera, and on occasion I'll have like B-roll playing for specific things, but just so you know. So I just want to do this quickly, so that's why I'm just going to be reading my script here. So to keep my intro brief, Cameroon videos tend to do exceptionally well on this channel. Cameroon is in West/Central Africa, where I was born and grew up. I went to boarding school there from the ages of 10 through 13. And at the end of my third year is when I came to the US. Now, my brother has been encouraging me to talk about my boarding school experience on this channel. He said it'll make for great content, but because there are so many layers to it, I wasn't sure how I was going to approach it. That was until I saw this video by Tiffany Ferg right here on YouTube about how YouTube now feels lackluster. I'll insert like the video here, or the thumbnail of the video here. So she says YouTube feels lackluster since the pandemic started, and her solution to the problem was a themed series as opposed to single videos in order to keep the audience interested and engaged. Now, I believe Khadijah Mbo has also mentioned something to that effect in one of her videos. So can you say light switch went on? So without further ado, let's get into my boarding school experience. Episode 1, a weekday in the life of an underclassman at an all-girls Catholic boarding school. So, let me set the scene for you. It's September 1998, I am 10 years old, and I have just been dropped off at said boarding school. Now, I won't reveal the name of the school for reasons. All I'll say is that it was a Catholic all-girls boarding school, and it was a good 5 to 6 hour bus drive to get there from Yaoundé, the capital where I lived. Now, the US is divided into 50 states. Cameroon is divided into 10 provinces. And this school was out of province for me. And to be clear, going to boarding school was a choice. No one forced me to go. I wanted to go, well, because my parents went to boarding school back in your day and spoke highly of your experience. Now, they went to boarding school in Ghana because that is where they were born. I know I rep Cameroon a lot on this channel because I was born and grew up there, but Ghana is also part of my heritage, and I'll be making more videos about Ghana coming up really soon. So stay tuned for that. So back to boarding school. I also wanted to go to boarding school because a lot of my classmates from primary school, which is the equivalent of elementary school, were going to a boarding school after primary school, and I wanted to be with the in crowd. I also thought it would be nice to have familiar faces in a new setting. So, back to a day in my life at this boarding school as a first year student, or Form 1. I shall heretofore refer to the first year students as Form 1s. Form as in FORM. Cameroon was once an English colony, so you know how that goes. Check out my facts about Cameroon videos for more info. I talk a little bit more about that. So back to my story finally. I was awoken by the clangor of an iron rod being banged against a rusty rim at least 10 times, perhaps an 11th for good measure. That was the 5 a.m. bell, the first bell of the day. The beginning or ending of every activity at this boarding school was marked by a bell. On Tuesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, the morning bell or alarm went off at 5:30. We did not attend daily morning mass on Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday, and Sunday masses began at 8 or 9 a.m. Remember, again, this is a Catholic boarding school, so going to mass was a thing. So we got an extra 30 minutes of sleep on those days, being Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Again, for the sake of this video/podcast, we'll discuss a Monday routine. If you end up enjoying this video/podcast, let me know if you'd like a more in-depth week in the life at this boarding school. I want to keep the first episode simple, entertaining, and under 15 minutes. I'm gonna try. So we had morning mass at 6 a.m. on Monday at the cathedral, which was off campus, but close enough to walk and get there in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops. So the bell goes off at 5 and the lights came on simultaneously. Usually, the lights were controlled by the night watch guy who I'm sure had instructions as to when to turn the lights on and off. The lights in the dorm specifically. Once the bell went off, the dormitory became alive with lots of bed creaking sounds, feet stumping or dragging, and a heavy cloud of body odor and morning breath, which thankfully would be taken care of in just 10 short minutes once everyone but the prefects exited and headed to the shower side with your buckets of water and toiletry bags, and a window or two were cracked open to let in that crisp morning air. I'll get to discussing these prefects, aka Form 5s, the upperclassmen who ran shit on campus. Making my bed was my next priority once back in the dorm from the shower side after 10 minutes, or getting dressed for morning mass. Both had to get done either way. The repercussions for leaving the dorm without making my bed was finding my mattress outside after mass. Yes, which had happened before. Thankful it didn't rain that day. Who put the mattress outside? The dorm captain, who was an upperclassman. Again, only upperclassmen had titles and positions. Alright, so once I was dressed in full church attire, which was my school uniform, headscarf, and Cameroon hymnal, and my bed was made, it was time to start heading to the cathedral. The cathedral was the church prefect's domain. Her chance to exercise her power. The church prefect's responsibilities were simple: to ensure that all students arrived at the cathedral in proper church attire, in a timely manner, and conducted themselves in a reverent manner all through Mass, genuflecting in front of the tabernacle upon entry and exit of the cathedral, singing along with the cathedral choir, staying awake throughout the entire Mass, and most importantly, keeping one's buttocks off the benches when kneeling in the pew. This is one of the reasons I no longer go to church now. Anyway, the minute the closing hymn was completed and the priest and altar boys were out of sight, indicating the end of Mass, it was like an Olympics marathon. Everyone, but the upperclassmen again, raced out of the cathedral back to campus, arriving at the dining room, which we called the refectory, for breakfast, sweating and panting heavily. Now, getting the lion's share of that tasteless Lipton tea, the biggest loaf of bread or beignets, was not why everyone was running to the refectory after Mass. We were running because the refectorians, which were the upperclassmen in charge of the refectory, were chasing us and making threats.
"Let me not get to the refectory before you,"
they would yell, because if they did get to the refectory before us, they'd stand at the entrance and write down our names for punishment on Friday. Now, punishment was some sort of manual labor, like scrubbing the toilets or the floors of the Form 5 classrooms, or like cutting grass. And nobody wanted to spend the only 3-hour downtime we had on campus, which was Friday afternoon, scrubbing nasty toilets. After being chased by the refectorians from the cathedral all the way to the refectory and gulping down my breakfast in less than 15 minutes, I had to get to my charge. Now, a charge was a chore. Every underclassman was assigned a section on campus she was in charge of cleaning every single day. Now, the time allotted for charges on weekdays was just about 20 minutes. The 20 minutes between the end of breakfast and the start of morning assembly. Now, on Saturday, the time allotted for charges felt like 3 hours. Honestly, it could have just been an hour and a half, but because I didn't have a watch, I wouldn't know. I don't think we were allowed to wear watches because a watch was considered jewelry, and jewelry was not allowed at this school. I think only the timekeeper was allowed to wear a watch because she was the timekeeper. If she didn't ring that bell at 5 a.m., nobody was waking up and she would get in a lot of trouble. So back to my charge. I remember my charge being one of the 2 volleyball courts we had on campus, a cement volleyball court outside. So I usually didn't have much to do besides pick up papers on weekdays. Now, on Saturdays, I would remove weeds, if any, and then sweep. Now, I knew my time was up doing my charge when I heard the bell beckoning me and everyone else to the other volleyball court, the one in front of the classrooms, for morning assembly. Once everyone was lined up on the volleyball court according to form and height, short people in the front to the tallest in the back, and then the Form 1s on, I think, the left-hand side all the way through the Form 5s on the right-hand side. That's how it went. So once everyone was lined up, the senior prefect, who was more so the president of the student body government, and her assistant got up in front of the entire student body, waited for complete silence, and then led everyone in prayer, the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven. Now, the singing of the Cameroonian national anthem followed. Then it was time for announcements, if any. Then the floor would be the school principal's, only if it was Friday. That was the only day the principal made an appearance at morning assembly. Unless she had a time-sensitive announcement that couldn't wait until Friday. Then she would show up like on a Monday or a random day. And then once announcements were done, everyone was dismissed to class. 8:30 a.m. marked the start of my first class or first period. And the physics teacher was already in class before we could get there. 2 paragraphs worth of notes already written on the blackboard. Newton's law of motion, 1 massive paragraph. Mass, force, and weight, another massive paragraph. Energy and work, she was making a start at the 3rd paragraph. Great. Physics was on the list of my least favorite subjects. On that list was also history, which was my second class of the day. Biology and chemistry were next, if I remember correctly. Those weren't on my least favorite subjects list, but the one after that was religion. Yes, because this was a Catholic school, religion as a subject was on the curriculum. As a Form 1, I was taking 13 subjects. We all were, no questions asked. So there was physics, history, chemistry, biology, religion, PE, geography, mathematics, English literature, French, home ec, civics, and German. We were the first group of Form 1s to take German. It had been Latin previously, with it being a Catholic school and all, but again, since Cameroon was colonized by the Germans, they wanted us to learn German. Some subjects we had only once a week, like PE, civics, and home ec. And all the others, we had them 5 days a week, I believe, 4 or 5 days a week. Now, after my religion class was break, 20 minutes, I believe, I'd go to the dorm to get a snack if I had anything in my travel trunk. And if I had nothing in my travel trunk, which usually happens towards the end of the term, I would just stay in class, or maybe I would just step outside to stretch my legs or something, or use the bathroom. There were 4 episodes after break, and then it was a lunch of rice, egusi soup, and the tiniest piece of fish. It wasn't the best, but it was filling. We had that at least 3 times a week for lunch. Luckily, I wasn't a picky eater. Picky eaters wouldn't make it at this school. The menu was set, no deviations were made to accommodate anyone. If you could not handle the food well, then the school was not for you. After lunch was nap time, which we called siesta. It might have been maybe about an hour. And then after nap time, we headed back to class for what we called afternoon prep. It was basically a 2-hour study hall. Again, I had no concept of time in this place. Every activity just seemed to take very long. There were only 2 activities that were enjoyable. Actually 4 maybe. Clubs, movie night, outings, and then sleeping. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Time seemed to stretch, and yet term after term, year after year, I went back to this school because there was a certain level of prestige almost that came with being a student at this school. So at 5 p.m., the bell indicating the end of afternoon prep went off, and it was time for games for me because it was a Monday. But it was manual labor time for Form 3s. Now, every form except the Form 5s, again, the upperclassmen, had your day to do manual labor or cleaning the campus. Yes, more cleaning in addition to our morning charges. During the rainy season, cutting grass for manual labor was a given. We cut grass with a machete. It was on the prospectus, which was the list of items students were required to have before coming to the school, much like in Harry Potter. This is why Harry Potter resonated so much with me. I could relate to going away to school at a young age. My school had 4 houses, just like in Harry Potter, and my mom was sent a list of requirements, the prospectus, she had to purchase for me before my arrival at the school. So my 10-year-old self had a machete just chilling in my trunk. It was quite light, as though it was made for kids, but it got the job done, which was cutting overgrown grass. So, as a Form 1, my day to do manual labor was on Thursday. But since we were talking about Monday's activities in this podcast/video, I had games. Now, games consisted of either intramural volleyball, jumping rope, or dodgeball, which we called dodging. The game's captain assigned us a specific game to play, which the micromanagement of it all. They wanted us to play games, but they also had to assign the games that they wanted us to play. I really don't know how I survived 3 years of this. So we played whatever game was assigned to us until it was time to change for dinner. Our dinner attire was a plain white dress, also a requirement on the prospectus. We didn't wear regular house street clothes in the school at all. This was all in the name of uniformity so that no one felt inferior or superior to the other. I mean, it did happen though, because there were students who had rich parents and other students who had middle class or poor parents. But having all of us wear the same thing alleviated some of that. Now, after a dinner of boiled sweet potatoes and beans, we were right back in class again for evening prep. How much studying did we possibly need? If I had finished my homework during afternoon prep, then evening prep was a long 2-hour stretch of pretending to read. Yes, because we couldn't lay our heads down on our desk and nap with the study prefect present. She wanted us to study by force. Because it was Monday though, we could hope not to have to be stuck in class for the whole 2 hours. Why? Monday was video night for Form 1s. Much like manual labor, every form had your designated weekday for video night, which was the only time during the week we got to watch TV. Video night took place in the library, where the only TV set on campus for students was located, and it was under lock and key. The TV, that is. Now, a few things had to happen in order for video night to be successful. And by successful, I mean for us, the students, to actually make it to the library and for the TV to be turned on for us by the chaperone. The first and major contributing factor for a successful video night was for the chaperone, one of our teachers who lived on campus and was specifically assigned chaperone of Form 1 video night, to show up and lead us down to the library, and then put on a movie we actually would enjoy. These video nights, in fact, were my introduction to Nollywood movies like Karashika, which I had mentioned in my recent Cameroonian Superstitions video. Check it out if you missed it. I will link it down below if you're watching this on YouTube. I'll also try to link it in my podcast. I was also introduced to Hollywood classics like Mamma Mia, the original one, The Sounds of Music, and Coming to America, the original one, obviously. Now, the cherry on top of getting a break from studying to watch movies was being able to bring snacks. An unsuccessful video night, on the other hand, meant the chaperone in charge of taking us to the library didn't show up at all. Or if she showed up, we all got too excited, made a lot of noise on our way to the library, thereby causing a disruption for the other students who were not Form 1s, and resulting in the chaperone sending us back to class as punishment. Another scenario of an unsuccessful video night was the Form 5s raiding our class in search of snacks, seizing those snacks before the chaperone showed up to take us to the library. Now, the Form 5's excuse of seizing our snacks was that snacks were not allowed in the library. This was true. However, the chaperone overrode that rule and allowed snacks just this once. What was even worse was the Form 5s never returned those seized snacks after the video night was over. I couldn't stand those Form 5 bitches. A lot of them abused their power. Again, my next episode will be just about Form 5s and the role they played on campus. 9 p.m. was the end of night prep for Form 1s and 2s. The rest of the school got an additional 30 minutes because their courses were much harder, I guess. Since the dorms were locked through night prep and the keys were in the possession of the dorm captain, at 9, we had to go to collect the dorm keys from her, the dorm captain, through the Form 5 classroom window in the back. Now, their windows were very low, which was helpful. Now, me as a Form 1 couldn't set foot on the veranda in front of the Form 5 classrooms, much less waltz into their classroom. The only time I could be in a Form 5 classroom was if I was cleaning it as punishment. Anyway, once we got the keys to the dorm, we had to change into our pajamas, maybe get a snack, and then brush our teeth, all before lights out at 10 p.m. Now, once that light was turned off at 10 p.m., it didn't come back on until 5 a.m. the next morning, even though the bell was going to be going off at 5:30 since we didn't have mass on Tuesday. Remember, we never had mass on Tuesdays Fridays and Saturdays. So the bell would ring at 5:30 then, and every other day that we had mass, it would ring at 5. And that's it. A day in the life at boarding school. Hope you enjoyed it and stay tuned for episodes 2. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next week in the next one. Bye.